Hey Ionics, what's up? Welcome back to a new tutorial, and today we're going to implement web push notifications for an Ionic progressive web app. So these are different than the regular native push notifications, which need a lot of certificates and setup, and the web push is actually a lot easier, but the problem is that this is basically not working yet on iOS. So for Safari, the push API of the web isn't working. We can check this out by simply going to Can I Use and check for the push API. And we see that for Safari or iOS Safari, everything is red. That means push notifications on the web won't work inside an iOS progressive web app, Ionic progressive web app, of course. But they will work inside a lot of other browsers actually. We will build a progressive web app, we will check it out on the Chrome browser, we will check it out on Android, and these things actually work pretty good. So let's hope that at some point iOS might add this, but you never know. But anyway, I already started a blank new Ionic application with Angular capacitor, and I added two schematics. First one for Angular progressive web apps, well, because we want to build a progressive web app, and then Angular Fire for Angular Fire. We could also do this without, but I kind of like Angular Fire. And then we also generate another service, there we go, which will hold all the logic for our application for the messaging. Now, once you've done this, you should have a few new files like the manifest, web manifest. You should have not safe for work config, a lot of other things. Inside your app module, you should see that Angular registered a service worker. So all of these are done by the schematics. But we now need to create a few more files and configurations. But first of all, you should check out your Firebase project, create one if you just want to test this out, and then go to the project settings and add a web application. I already did this, so I will just grab my config from here, and as usual I will put this into my environment. So Firebase, there we go. I'll also just add it to the production just in case, because I will later build this app for prod, and if you don't have it inside here, I think you will have a problem. So this is step number one. Step number two is to generate a few new files within the source folder. The first one is called Firebase Messaging Service Worker JS. Firebase looks for this service worker with exactly this name, and within we got a bit of content. First of all, we got two import scripts, and it's important to notice that this version, so 7.61, should be, well, almost like this version. Maybe I need to update Firebase later on. So initially I thought that these versions need to be the same like this. If it works like this, fine. But in the past there were also some issues with versions that didn't work. So if you encounter problems like service worker not registered, it might be related to these versions. Now let me quickly copy my configuration once again. And there we go. And that is our first file. Now, because within our app module, we already got one service worker registered, we need to combine these two service workers. And we can do this by generating another file and call this one combined service worker JS. Within combined service worker JS, we now import both service workers. So we import the not safe for work worker, and we also import the Firebase messaging worker that we just created. And now we can simply, instead of directly using the default service worker from Angular, pass in the combined minus, okay, that was German, service worker.js. Well, minus and minus, I think you will get this. Okay, two files, combined service worker, Firebase messaging service worker. To make sure these are copied to the actual output of your application, you have to open the Angular JSON and dive into App, Architect, Build, Options, Assets. And right after Web Manifest, we can add two more entries to our combined service worker and the Firebase messaging. This is simply for the build process of Angular, so these files are copied over to the final build folder. And one last setting, so there's really a lot of small things you need to set up front, but then it actually gets easier, is within your web manifest file. You need to add the GCM sender ID, and this ID is actually, I thought it was wrong, but that's the same ID for everyone. It just identifies Google as the sender, so well, yeah, that's it. I didn't came up with this. Now, inside our app module, we also need a few other things. We also need the Angular Fire module and the Angular Fire messaging module. And we can add both after right in here. So initialize Angular Fire like usually with our configuration, and also add the Fire messaging module. That is already like 50% of what we had to do, because the configuration is actually kind of tricky. So now we can move into our messaging service, and we will inject the private AF messaging AF, yeah, that should be fine. So there are a few things you need to do when you want to send push notifications. Of course, you need to ask the user for a token. Thanks. And of course, you need to ask for permission up front. And with Angular Fire messaging, we can actually combine these two things and write a function request permission, in which we return this Angular Fire messaging request token. So this will actually ask for permission, and if the user gives permission, it will return a token. So we can add a little pipe block at this point. Hello, request token. Yeah, actually like this. At this point, we get back a token. And usually you would now in some way store this inside your database or your backend, because this is the token you need when you want to send out a push notifications to a user. In this example, I will skip this. And the simple way would be to store the token inside Firestore under the UID of the user, so you can identify the user and grab the token easily within Cloud Functions, and then automatically create a push notification. If you want to see something like this, let's say with adding this to Firebase and then automatically sending a push notifications from Cloud Functions, you know, let me know in the comments. But for now, we will just add a little lock in here. So you should store the token, and that's the token. All right, that's it. Besides that, we also want to subscribe to all the messages that we get in the foreground. This is really important. In the background, it's actually not that easy. But to get the foreground messages, you can simply get this observable from Angular Fire messaging called messages. We can subscribe to this from our view, and then we will automatically get the latest push notifications when the app is open. Finally, if you also want to make this like privacy compliant, you should add a function to delete a user token if the user doesn't want to get your random spam notifications anymore. So in that case, call Angular Fire messaging delete token with the stored user token. And if you stored it in a database, of course, you should remove it in there as well. All right, let's head on to homepage. I will get rid of this. Although it looks good, I usually don't want to have it. But of course, I want to have a blue bar and call this didactic push. That's important. Within the homepage, we can now listen for messages. And let me just bring in a few things so we can actually test them. Let's add all missing imports, our service, and the alert and toast from Ionic. For listening to messages, we will just call the get messages we just implemented, which is once again an observable. And for our test, I will also new message, log this out. Actually, that's how you spell it. And this is interesting. We will compare this in the end with the notification I generate with a command line or Postman. So then you will see why we're using these fields. Basically, these are different informations stored in the notification. Now, to request permission, it's just calling our function, really. So messaging service request permission. If you get back a token, let's just display a little toast, and in the error case, we can present the error and the reason. And finally, for delete, same like before, we can just call delete token on the messaging service and present a little toast. Now we just need to present this within our view, which is like just 2 buttons, and that's basically it. I think we can now run Ionic serve. I will also maybe, well, I will show you also the deployed version of this. That wasn't the deployed version. Where's my Firebase? So while this starts, there we go. Within the hosting, I have already deployed this to Firebase. And if you want to do the same, the steps are going ahead with Ionic build --prod. So this will generate a build folder, actually a www folder inside your folder right here. And you can follow this with Firebase init. Because then you can select hosting. It will ask you 3 questions. Do you want to rewrite everything to your index file? Yes. Do you want to overwrite that file? No. And also, which folder do you want to use for hosting? www, which is the build folder you get from this. And after this, you only need to run Firebase deploy, and then everything inside the www folder will be deployed to your connected hosting. You might get or you might have to enable hosting here, I think, if it's a blank new or testing project. So then click enable and then you can use this. Now here's my application with Ionic Serve. Let's try and request permission, and we get back a token. So with this token, we're now able to send push notifications to this app. And there are 2 ways to do this. Way number 1 includes using Postman. Great tool. You can also use Insomnia. There are different tools for testing an API, but I usually use Postman. You make a post request to fcm.googleaps.com, blah, blah, blah. And then the body is important. You got the notification with a title, body. You can even set an icon and define a click action, which is quite interesting. And then you can also add another data block. And in here, you could have some more information that you also usually send in the payload of a push. And 2 is now the field where you put in the token we just got. So usually it's in the database and you use it just with a cloud function, but that's how you can do it. And finally, you need to authorize this request. And how can I hide everything in here again? There we go. That's the only thing I added. Authorization, and then key equals some random key. Of course, it's not random. You can check it out inside the project settings within messaging, cloud messaging actually. And at the top, you should find your server key. So simply copy this and put it after key. Now let's open my application and let's trigger the notification. And there we go. We get new message. We get all the information. So Practical Ionic, check out my book. And this is my special information. Quickly going back to show you where we got the data from. So inside the alert, we see message notification title, message notification body, and message data info. And that's also exactly what you see in here. So data info, and otherwise we get everything from the notification. It's really just the information we added here inside the body. If you don't want to use Postman, feel free to use a little curl call. Let me bring this in as well. So it would look like this. To the authorization, we would now have to add our key again. Just copy this, kite big, content application JSON, and then you generate the body, title, body, icon, click action, and then we once again need our token. So let's use the token once again. Okay, and then we got this big curl, and we can just send this out. And no, I got a quote somewhere. Where did I go wrong along the way? What is this? No quote. What's your problem? Come on. This really used to work. But now, let me quickly check this. I forgot this one. I think that's it. Interesting. You can't see this right now. Actually, the notification on iOS comes up at the top if the tab isn't active. And once I click on this, it actually opens the URL we have defined. So that's when the tool or when your application is in the background. So let's just do it from here, because then we won't be in the background. So let's open it. Cannot read. Okay, yeah. Right now I haven't added to the curl call the data slot, but you see everything else is in here as well. Use Postman, use curl, use whatever you want to. Now I quickly wanted to show you that it's actually not working on iOS. So let's open Safari. And we already see Firebase error messaging. This browser doesn't support the APIs, and if I wouldn't click on everything, we could read it. Required to use Firebase SDK. Same now, if I click on request permission, Firebase messaging, browser doesn't support APIs, and that's also the reason why we don't get the notification on iOS. If you want to, let's quickly also check it out on Android. Okay, so I've installed the progressive web app on my device from Firebase hosting. Actually, you have to request permission on the browser and accept it from there. If you add the application to the home screen and then from here use request permission, I think it's not really working, but let's try it again. Well, actually we got our token. Quick lesson on debugging inside Chrome. Simply run Chrome inspect and select your device if you connect it to your computer, which is always helpful if you want to access an external device. And then you can inspect the Ionic app, and we actually get the token from here. Now, let me use this token once again with Postman, and then we might be able to see on Android a little push notification right there inside our progressive web app. I really think this is awesome. As well, let's also check out background. So app is closed. I can actually, let's close it completely. Is there actually a push coming now? Yeah, actually there is our notification right here. Even the image, actually that works better than the native push notifications. Really amazing. And I can click on this, and now this would open the page of my book Practical Ionic once again. So this is how you can implement push notifications on the web inside a progressive web app. It only works on Android and specific other browsers. So if you deploy it as a website, it can work in some, it won't work on Safari. It also completely won't work inside an iOS progressive web app, and you will have actually no chance to implement push notifications for iOS progressive web apps in any way right now. Still, I think it's really helpful. For Android, this works pretty great, and it's also helpful for some websites. But please, as usual, don't spam your users. Push notifications can be really annoying, so I don't want to be responsible for this. Please use it wisely and don't spam your users. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and stay subscribed so you get notified about all the new tutorials, quick wins, and other app development and web development videos on this channel. If you want to learn more about Ionic with in-depth courses, a community of like-minded developers so you can learn and build your apps faster, you should definitely check out the Ionic Academy, which is my code school to help you with everything Ionic, with a huge library of courses, material, and a supportive Slack channel so we can get your app out. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you inside the next video. Have a great day and happy coding. Simon.